Good afternoon. A very warm welcome to all of you. Those of you who are here physically present, but also those of us who are online. Thank you for making the time to be with us at Friends of Europe. My name is Kryeministri Edi Rama. I'm going to be moderating this very significant Balkan Summit. For those of you who've been here before, a warm welcome back. For those of you who are new, thank you for joining us. A couple of years ago, we made a decision that the way in which we were doing our annual Balkan Summit was very much through the lens of the EU. I wanted us to change that. We've done that. We've basically taken the discussion around the Balkans through a Balkans lens, looking at the fact that good growth, good democracy, rule of law, making communities work is good for any democracy in any society. It doesn't have to be just because you have to enter the EU. And our approach has been, essentially, the lens we're taking the Balkans is glass half full rather than glass half empty. And that's the approach we are taking to all our discussions around the Balkans. It's a real pleasure to welcome you all here. We will also be launching our security study. It's part of our EU Defence Security Series, where we've had one of our senior fellows, Paul Taylor, well-known journo, who's been interviewing people in the region and outside to think about security in the Balkans. Timely, obviously, given what's happened to Ukraine and other matters. I've been kind of moderating these sessions for many, many years, and I have to say, I was just commenting on that. It's the first time I've got three big guns. I shouldn't say guns. Three big folk. In a way, you have one prime minister or a president, but to have a president and two prime ministers from very significant parts of the Balkans is a wow factor. So thank you three for being here. We're honoured, privileged, and we do respect the fact that you are busy people, but you've made the time to be here, especially the day after, where we had the EU Balkan Summit hosted in Tiranë. And so, in particular, I'm really pleased that people have taken flights in the morning. These men have been flying and having to do all their other state business while still trying to get here for this Balkan Summit. So thank you, and thanks to all of you for being here. It's going to be a tortuous task, and it's the toughest gig for me because I know that all of these three men have a lot to say. And so I'm going to try and make sure there's enough interaction with you and make sure that they create the space for that, because it's important, because it's not often, as I say, it's not often you get the opportunity to dialogue with three state leaders in a room in front of you to talk about matters of the day, especially on the back of the EU Balkan Summit. So I'm going to ask all three of them the same opening question, actually. So firstly, Siva, thank you very much for being with us. You've been with us in person some years ago, but I know Eddie has also been here, but I think probably a decade ago or less than that. But last time we worked together, you made the most impassioned plea, virtually, about the sacrifices, the things you'd done to commit to this EU Balkan story, and how the relationship, you did everything possible, but felt let down. After yesterday, do you still feel optimistic? Has anything changed, or is it the same old, same old? Over to you.
It's working? It's okay? Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's okay. So, dear host, thank you for an invitation to speak along all of these distinguished gentlemen. Then, and sorry for standing while speaking, because that's the only way to appear taller than Eddie. So I saw very short remarks on the scenario you have offered to us before coming here. So I saw the scenario you are offering us only 5 minutes per person for the introductory remarks. You have, in essence, repeating the mistake of President Macron in the recent Paris Peace Forum. You're inviting the people from the Balkans and squeezing all of us into 5 minutes. Come on.
I know it's culturally inappropriate.
Very shortly. Yesterday event was a significant one, but not with historic proportions. And we have here, myself and Dieter has not been there, but Eddie was the host, and he can something more to tell to you. The watershed event, the milestone, I would say, regarding North Macedonia, European Union integrations, happened in midsummer this year, when we have finally lifted that blockade put on us on one member state of the European Union and started negotiations. We are now in the so-called boring term and the screening process, which should last for 14 months and should end by November next year. And after that, we should continue with opening the clusters now, the new name for the previous chapters. But I can tell you that Euro enthusiasm is not there. Then in the last 18 months only, the support for the European Union integration, I'm speaking for my country, I'm quite confident that the similar trends are happening in the rest of the Western Balkan region. No, no. Dropped by 25%. So now we are in the in the range of 60 to 62% in favor of the European Union membership, and we have been in the 80s, even 90s, just a few years ago. But it's up to the Europhiles living in North Macedonia. It's up to the responsible leadership, political leadership, to show to the people that this is the best alternative for our country, for the prosperity and real transformation of all vital sectors in the society. So this is the path we are not going to give up. And of course, on that way, we are expecting full support, 100%, and full focus on the part of the European Union as well. And one short sentence for these 2-3 minutes at the beginning. I wouldn't like to see that the European Union, once the war in Ukraine is over, hopefully tomorrow or today, will be back to the business as usual. Then dealing only with the internal infighting, only speaking about the EU long-term financial perspective, speaking only about who will get what within the European Union, and losing focus on the Western Balkan. And I wouldn't like to see that Western Balkan will enter again into the real focus of the European Union and of Brussels only when there is a big migration crisis or some big war on the continent. Thank you.
So, whilst you've got the mic, if I can, just one follow-up. Am I kind of, from what you said, these are my words, not yours, so the atmosphere hasn't changed towards you and enlargement as a result of what's happened?
Not, honestly, not too much, because we have paid really a high political price.
Okay.
Then we have approximately 2/3 of the people being against the European negotiating framework. And despite all of that, we have accepted that framework in our parliament. But that was a really tough and uphill battle.
Thank you. Okay, I promise I'll give you opportunities to ask questions from the audience, but I want to give all three the opportunity to make their opening remarks. So, Prime Minister Montenegro, please, first to you now, the same question. Do you feel more optimistic? Have things changed, or is it, for you, the same old, in terms of EU-Balkan negotiations and discussions?
So, first of all, Mr. Kanani and dear audience and dear excellencies, my friends, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I think that this is the great opportunity for all of us to do some interactive discussion to see how we see the future of the Western Balkans in connection with EU. Just very short about the yesterday meeting. It's connected with your question. Everything what Eddie is maestro for the events, and I think that was very, very, very nice. Me and the President was not there, but...
you are more about substance, you know.
But it's very good to see the lot of leaders which coming to giving the support to Western Balkan countries. And I am pretty optimistic. Maybe it's not looking like this. Maybe we have some difficulties, it's true, challenges, but definitely EU need to understand what's simple thing. EU also need to stay attractive for the countries which want to join EU, especially after Brexit. This is first point. Second point is the situation after aggression of Russia Federation in Ukraine. If EU don't understand that they need to stay attractive and to keep the open door for the Western Balkan countries, I think that everybody will lose. Not only countries from Western Balkan. I think that everybody will lose. So I think that now it's a little bit after all this happens. We have 2 or 3 meetings which was very good. We have also a very good meeting in the Berlin, very good meeting. I think that yesterday was also a very successful meeting, and maybe with some agreement which are not so crucial but are very important, we sending a different message to the region of Western Balkan. Yes, it's true that in meantime we have also intention, not concretely in our countries, but very near to our countries, and we need to see how we can support all 6 countries to stay focused on the EU agenda. It's not easy, because people ordinary people waiting for some concrete steps and waiting to deliver something concrete. I just want to mention that in New York, we have the common meetings of the 6 leaders of Western Balkan countries with the Commissioner and discuss about support in context of energy crisis. And 2 months after that, we have something concrete to deliver to the people. So when we are unique in advocacy, in voice, when we are loud, all 6 for the same thing, I think that we can come to the goal. When we coming, talking bad about each other, fighting each other, in the meetings with the EU or without EU, we making problems also to our people. So my message is, let's try all together. It's not so complicated to see what are the topics, then we can have the same voice, that we can have the same request, and go with that request to European Commission. I want to congratulate Albania and North Macedonia for the finally deblocating of the EU process. I think that they wait a long time, and decision making also from side of EU should be more effective. If it's not effective, we giving the possibility to some third sides to come in the region, to jump in the region, to make impact on the region, because they will be more concrete. In Montenegro, I don't know percentage in other countries, more than 80% of people still have giving strong support to EU perspective of the country. We don't want to lose that. But also expecting, with all our internal problems and challenges, from another side, to understand that message and to don't, with some bureaucratic, misunderstanding, to change that will in some negative way. I think that we should understand that the will of the people is realistic and honest in the way that the huge majority of the country see country like the future in EU and the part of the big European family.
Do you feel, thank you for that, Tristan. Do you feel that, as I said to Sivo, do you feel that the atmosphere has changed in relation, and what I mean by that is that, has the tone of engagement changed since Ukraine? Is there a sense of understanding the geopolitical opportunity that the Balkans present and getting over the old arguments of EU Balkans? Has that changed, or is it just the same old for you?
Thank you for that question, because I want to give a little critique. I think that is constructive, but maybe it's not. So, yes, in the context that we need to be more concrete in support of Ukraine, we need to be more solidar, we need to go to the sanction in everything, that was, EU is pretty active, and we follow that. And in context to see that door it's more open for us, I didn't see this. This is the problem. So, yes, support, sanction, this, that, everything, which is okay, and I am fully agree with that. And we will, until the end, support Ukraine. Until the end. We have more than 10,000 refugees in our country, which is near to 2% of population, because we are very small. We will do that until the end. But in the end of the day, it's not only to talk, support, doing this, doing that, but to open the space for Western Balkans. Because if we don't use this opportunity, I think that we will stay like a black hole, and that will be also problematic for EU. So I am much more agreed with the countries which always saying that Western Balkan countries need to have the priority, and we need to make some concrete steps to bring them in the EU.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to, now, last but not least, thank you also for making the journey, Eddie, and I know that it was a very early start, given that you hosted in Tirana the summit. tell us, give us your honest reflection of what you felt happened yesterday, and whether, as I said, has anything changed, or is it the same? Or do you see any glimmer of hope that Ukraine is creating a different context for this conversation?
Thank you for this opportunity, really. And it's also a great opportunity to finally disagree with Stevo, because we have agreed so much lately, and it became unbearable. And so it's a moment to disagree. When someone asked me long ago, what Albania can bring to Europe, to the European Union? You know, it's not easy to answer this question, right? And I said, we can bring some smile. And yesterday, we brought smile in their faces. You saw their faces yesterday? They were better than when they gather in the boring Brussels and in their depressed great capitals. And the great thing was during the family photo, because we had a different way to make family photo, and I hope this will change also their way to make family photo. It was great to hear behind me, the sun. Look at the sun. What a beautiful sun. The sun, the sun. It was like, you know, people getting out from a cave from a long time and enjoying the sun. Because it was a beautiful sun yesterday in Tirana. And these are good things, right? We gave yesterday to the European Union. But talking about the smile, I think it's more profound than just superficial. Because first of all, we are very loyal, Albanians, I mean. And we are never boring. And these two things are very much needed in the European Union. We are very loyal, and the popularity, and this is where I disagree fully with Stevo. No, not that I disagree. About North Macedonia is true. About Montenegro is true. But we are different. The popularity of European Union in Albania is still very high. And it's not me that I say, the oracle of Brussels, EU barometer, says it. The most pro-EU country in the continent. Because we came from hell. But not from the French hell, which is a paradise they call hell. We came from the real one, totally isolated. For us, Yugoslavia, where these guys were living, was kind of, you know, planet of freedom.
European Union.
Was European Union, better than European Union, I guess, in some ways. So, except for our Kosovo brothers and sisters. But as a matter of fact, we became naturally so devoted to the European Union that nobody and nothing can change us. And not only because we have been always devoted to empires, which is true. Which is true. We were the last to leave the Ottoman Empire. Even when the Turks decided to leave, we were staying. We were very loyal to Stalin. Even when the Soviets said it's not a good idea to keep him in the squares, we had him until 1990 in our boulevard. So we'll be here, protecting the EU from the EU until the end. If they want to leave, we'll say, you have not to go. Even if we are at the door. Because it's true what Abbas is saying. That, I call him Abbas, you know, they are not opening the door for us to enter, but being at the door will not let them get out. And to be very serious, the summit yesterday was an amazing historic event. I think it's the most important event in the history of the international relations of Albania. We have in our old code, the Kanun, our common law, there is a very important part of it which says the house of the Albanian belongs to God and the guests. And it means that every guest is the will of God, so you have to welcome. Yesterday, we had both gods and guests, because the gods of EU came to Albania. And this was amazing, but more than everything for the region, to me, this was the very clear, finally, the clear signal that it's understood now that EU needs the Western Balkans as much as Western Balkans needs the EU. It's since some time, but now they understood. And to conclude with my 5 minutes, and I don't know what is wrong with you, really. You invite people from the Balkans, you say 5 minutes, 3 minutes, what is this? If you invite people from the Balkans, you have to give, filibuster.
Yes, indeed.
Filibuster.
But let's move on.
Everybody can go. We need to continue to speak, Because freedom of speech was so much prevented, we come from hell. That hell, you couldn't. You had to sing the same song in the same time, in the same place. Everyone together, not solo. But to conclude, I would say this. What Stevo is saying, and what Abbas said also, is about the vulnerability. Because in their countries, the Russian influence is present, and the Russian danger is real. In Albania, nobody cares about Russia, because we had Stalin until 1990, They got rid before, and now they have it from the back door. So this is where it's very important to keep the region together, and to keep EU and the region together. Because if you have these layers of Russian influence that are very active, combined with an approach from the EU that is not very active, then things can really mess up. Okay? And this goes from North Macedonia to Montenegro, and then to the Serbian space, where it's even worse.
Yes.
In terms of the threat and in terms of the vulnerability. That's why we need to keep all together, and that's why I always say, it's very crucial that also Serbia is on board so far. Not completely. When it comes to sanctions, it's not the case, but when it comes to the line in the United Nations, in the condemnation of aggression and all this, it's genuinely in this side. So this is where it's, when it comes to us, no problem. They can get us in, they can keep us at the door, we'll never give up. We'll never give up. And it was very important that we started the negotiation. This was what I was saying all the time. Let us talk. Don't say all the time we want to marry, but we don't want to talk. Because this is crazy. Yes, we want to marry, but we don't talk to you. No. Let us talk, and then we can marry whenever there is time. I married late, by the way. So I know that it can go very well in a kind of peaceful coexistence, preparing the marriage. And this is what we need to do now. Yeah. To create mechanisms of rapprochement that are not conditioned by the individual merit-based homework.
Yeah. Okay.
This is what they call it: individual merit-based homework.
Indeed. Look, and there is plenty of opportunity for you to talk, because we want to listen to all of you. You talked about Sun and Smiles, gods and guests, right? So you set the framework and tone of the conversation, and you brought it to life for everyone in this room. But what you haven't said is, what has changed? Has anything changed? Did you get a sense of optimism that, you hosted it there? That gives a lot of confidence in the region, but also in Albania. But did the literacy of enlargement change? Did the kind of tone of discussion change at all?
Listen, yesterday I was the host, and I was very sweet to them, and I didn't say anything disturbing. And I told them, if Albania would have gone to the great powers, we would have complained. But the great powers came to Albania. We have to just be nice host. But here I can say, as usual, what I think, and truly I think that something fundamental is changing.
Okay.
And I can explain during discussion what is this something fundamental. But what I suggest to my friends is don't see the change just in the form of membership, because this will not come. This will not come, by the way, soon. So, but we should see the change in a different way. And for the membership, we have to work very hard because it's for us. It's not for them.
Exactly.
It's for us. We need to do the homework. We cannot ask for the diploma without making the university and say, oh, we are suffering, we have only high school, but bring us in because we want to work as engineers. And then you go in and with Mark Rutte, what you are engineer? You are completely incapable. So you need to become capable and then to enter and be fully capable to stay there with them, not just because you can mess things, but because you are a model country or countries run by rule of law, run by all this. I'm not repeating all this, Bible and Quran in the same time, prediction of Brussels, but you have to do it.
Thank you. So you've been listening, you've been giggling, you've found the conversation enticing and engaging and hopefully thought-provoking. What's on your mind? Given what you've heard, you are here for a purpose, not simply just to be enticed by three, big heads of state. What's on your mind? What would you like to ask these gentlemen who run significant parts of the Balkans? Don't be shy. Surely not. Camera's great, good. Take the photos and the Instagram stuff, but someone must be inspired to ask a question. How often do you get this opportunity? My goodness. Hands up. Anybody? Ah, lovely. Count on the young people. Wonderful. Thank you. Young woman at the back. Can I just ask you to please introduce yourself and say who your questions to?
Hello everyone, I'm Jelena Tadic, UNICEF delegate from Montenegro. I have to make a question for our Prime Minister Dritana Bazovic. My question is how to change social and gender norms in Montenegro and the region, and what are the expectations? Okay, great. Before you answer, I'll bring another. Yes, go on, pass the mic on, yes. We have a significant youth delegation here, by the way. They've had their own session beforehand, so thank you all for still being here, because it's part of the way we want to work to make sure that your voices are heard.
Greetings, my name is Mate Milosievski. I'm a UNICEF youth delegate from North Macedonia, and my question is addressed towards Mr. President Stevo Pendarovski and the highly respected Prime Ministers as well. A lot of things were mentioned in terms of what is needed in the follow-up to the EU integration, but one thing that wasn't mentioned is the role that us youth play in the whole picture, and I think that's a really important point which needs to be addressed and should be addressed in the future, so I'd like to have their opinion on this topic.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Excellent. Please, gentlemen here, the mic is on its way to you. We should have a question for Eddie because he'll feel slighted, the fact that, there's no one asking him a question. I'm not teeing you up in any way, by the way.
I was looking at him, but yeah. Nicholas White from APCO Worldwide, but asking in a personal capacity. It's very good to see the three of you here from your three countries. And I know it's always difficult to talk about somebody else's country, but I do wonder what you would like to say about the impact of, first, the Serbia-Kosovo relationship, and secondly, the situation in Bosnia on the overall regional picture and perhaps on your country in particular. And I think Mr. Rama is particularly concerned with Kosovo.
Thank you very much. Steve, if I may, I'm going to start with you to give you the opportunity to respond to what you've just said from the youth delegate. And then, Dritana, I'll come to you, and then Eddie, I'll come to you finally for that fairly explosive question, if you like. I've got to stop using these analogies. Sorry, go on.
That's because the question will ask for a short answer. It is not. The role of youth, that's a phrase we're using very frequently, not only throughout the region, but throughout the world. The role of youth is crucial because you are, in essence, representing the most dynamic force in each society. And each changes, for good or for bad, are starting from the people of fewer or similar generations, or similar age. So we can speak at length about that very shortly. My thesis has always been, I was speaking about the status and the role and the influence eventually the young people should have in the development of each society, is that it's not possible to adopt the laws which will improve the lives of only the young generations. As it's not possible to adopt the laws or to make policies which will improve the lives of only elderly people or pensioners. So either together all generations are going to go forward, or we will be backward or being frozen in a state of affair which is not quite good. Everybody can describe the situation in the Balkans, in the Western Balkans, as not quite satisfying for all the people still living in the region. And the second thesis, one of my old definitions about the role of the youth, was that the biggest danger for the national security of each state and society is coming from the eventual big waves of young people leaving the country. So if demography is going down, that's certainly a big danger for each society, for development in a positive way of each society. I'm trying in my 3-4 years being in a mandate to include as many people as I can in my office. And if that's something of meaningful for any of us, then the average age of the people being employed in my office, I'm speaking about the first and second round for my advisors, is below 40, and I wouldn't like to speak with the people more older than that age. And I have established 3.5 years ago, the so-called Presidential Center for the Political Education, trying in several rounds each year to educate the people about the political culture, about tolerance, about all these democratic values which are still lacking in our society. So, as I said, I'm always supportive of the young people initiatives, but I can tell you that there is no any possibility for the young people like yourself to be more present in the decision-making process if you're sitting at home and playing video games.
So, Steve, if I may, can I just challenge a little bit of that? Because the young people that I've heard, and we've had this regularly, say they hear that statement. So, with all due respect, young people are important. We include their voices, but there's very little detail about the how. So, how are you, or how do you plan to involve young people that you've got at the back in the actual decision making, or even the thinking of policy directly?
Okay, let's be more precise, more concrete. I have been always supportive of the proposals to have the quotas for the young people in political bodies and institutions. As we have quotas for the national minorities, we have the quotas for the women. Why not to start thinking about, at least about that so-called positive discrimination, than having young people until the age of 25 or 27 in the parliament, in the local parliaments, in the governments? Why not?
Okay, excellent. Just over to you.
Thank you very much. I will try briefly to cover all three questions just shortly. About this gender issue, it's how we need to change a little bit our behavior and our mindset in our country. I know that sometimes that needs a long time, but it is some progress. And want to mention that we have now one municipality, Montenegro, one municipality, Budva, which make the new local government, and most of them, all of them are women for the first time. I think that this kind of things just sending the message that process is going in the right direction. But we need to work more and to show in our example that we want to change. This question about gender issue, it's connected with this of the youth. President will just leave me just to say one thing. I met a lot of young people, and I see a lot of young people which coming also in the politics in Montenegro. Also, they are elected in the parliament, state parliament, local parliaments. The key thing for Western Balkan is not to have young people with old ideas, but to have young people with new ideas. Because if we will have more young people with old ideas, our circumstances and our environment, political, social, will not change. Come, bring new ideas, fight for them. Forget what's happened, or not forget, but doing in another way. This is, I think, that we need the young people with new ideas. And about the question, it's not, this is most problematic question. This is the relation, how we feel in Montenegro, relation between Serbia and Kosovo, and relation Bosnia and Herzegovina. About the situation between Serbia and Kosovo, dialogue don't have any excuse. There is no alternative for dialogue. There is no alternative for dialogue. I know it's hard, I know it's easy to say, but there is no alternative. We didn't know each other before. I am the youngest one here. I didn't know these persons before. But when you talk 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, sharing the energy, sharing the ideas, making a communication, you starting to change the relation also in political way. Understand better each other. Speak about the things also when we don't have the same opinion about everything. And for me, dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo don't have any kind of alternative. And all these questions, which are now again started, which have some problems in the north of the country, also in Western Balkans, they are 2 things will change all situation from my point of view. First is fighting against corruption. Fighting against corruption will be fight against nationalism. Less corruption, less nationalism. And second, mobility of the people. We need to create the models, infrastructure, to have more mobility between different countries. This is the key thing. People in ordinary life will understand that they can have reconciliation. With no mobility, when we talk about we need the visas to go there or to go there, or we need the passports to go, now with the Berlin process have everywhere, Montenegro had this before also to travel with personal card. No personal card, nothing. People need to travel like in EU. Just to have the table, welcome to Albania, welcome to Montenegro, welcome to North Macedonia. That is the way to reconcile people. If you want to make the problem everywhere, you put the barrier and say these are our enemies. No, there is no enemies. Okay. Everybody have own interests, it's true. We are pretty different, but that is also good in some way. But in the end of the day, I am more than sure, I really believe that the huge percentage of all population in Western Balkan want to see the progress and don't want to see conflict anymore.
Thank you. Eddie.
So few things from my side. First of all, the summit yesterday was not just about the sun and the smiles and the dance and Verdi mixed with our folk, or about the usual, discussions, but it was about substance in terms of change. And going back to the young people, although I have some trouble, I have personal troubles when I have to be in a position to say what we should do for young people. Because when I was young, I never thought what should my father or the generation in power do for me. I thought what I can do to take it over. So they should take it over. And
you hear that?
What is this
just
quota?
Young people.
What is this quota for young people? Quota for young people. They are not disabled. In the sense that, okay, to disabled we offer different kind of stairs because they have a quota to enter in parliament young people. What is this? Well, they are like birds of incubation. We are put in incubatory, and no, the birds should come from the forest, from the mountain, from the sea, and attack. If you don't attack, stay, and what you are asking.
But what if the birds don't have the confidence or the background?
Now,
to be able
talking
to
about
engage?
young people.
Yes.
Because I'm saying it in the political sense.
Yeah.
And I was yesterday with Giorgia Meloni, and she started when she was young. She was grown up in the reddest district of Rome, and she was on the other side, and she fought like a little tiny dog in every student assembly, party, district, party, local, She's Prime Minister of Italy today. So young people should start by understanding that politics is not the problem. Politics is there to solve problems. Of course, politics can be the problem when it's left in the other's hands. Take politics in your hand and join others and try to change things. But this being said, our politics has changed something fundamental yesterday for young people, because the European Union has decided to include our universities in the region to the Alliance of Universities in the European Union. This is huge, because to do that, usually you had to be member. And we are not. We are far from being members, but we are now part of this alliance, which means that the young people in our countries are in the position to study without leaving the country through the technology in every university, and our universities are in the position to make alliances that bring a lot more projects, a lot more support, and so on. This is about the young people. The other thing is, what should be done? Not simply to continue this, get us in, no, we don't get you in, get us in, no, chapter this and chapter. I have, since we've started the accession talks, I have promised myself I'll never talk about chapters and clusters and series and episodes and Netflix, never. The thing is simple. The chapters and the clusters have to go in their way. Every country has to fulfill in every detail the homework. Because this is how you grow, this is how you make the real thing. Not by saying we are nice guys or we are troublesome guys, so bring us in, because then Russia will come and then we'll go to Turkey, we'll marry with Turkey, and then we'll get China as a mediator and we'll make a different... no, this is not how we should go. We need to do the homework, and we are blessed to be in the middle of Europe. What makes the difference between our generation in the middle of Europe and our generation in Iraq or in countries similar that try to go in democratic path is that they don't have the European Union to tell them and to learn them and to transfer the know-how about how you build the justice system, how you build the public administration, how you build the real food security, how you do this and how you do that. It is totally neurotic, but you have to go through it. You can get crazy, but you have to go through it. But in the same time, it's very important that we are not left without chances to get more involved in the spaces where we can get more support. We got the support from the European Union, budget support for the energy, every one of us. 85 million euros for Albania is great, but it's not so great when you see that these 85 million euros are taken from our IPA funds. So IPA funds are for our projects. Of course, we would love to use them for energy. This is great. But when I see, yesterday I had a conversation with Prime Minister Mitsotakis, 85 billion plus the income, inside income from the Greece activity coming from the European Union is huge. 85 billion. Of course, when you have 85 billion plus, independently from what you create within your system, you breathe you breathe, you can have your policies of support, packages, fighting this and fighting that. But when you have only your inside system, how you do? And the other point is, European Union should think about the convergence, the financial convergence. It's not going to go in the way that one can think, that one day we will have the same. Never, never, ever. It's going to go wrong. It's going to go not like this. It's going to go like this. They'll go richer and will not be able to follow. They have to think about it. So they have to put more resources to give us more capacity. We are not talking about 85 billion, but we are talking about, of course, some support that is really important. If we make just a little calculation, how much European Union pays plus from a citizen of EU member, and how much we can pay from our budget from a citizen of EU member through the IPA fund is ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. Angela Merkel said one time when we were in this Berlin process starts, she said, democracies, highways do not bring democracy. But democracies without highways are not really, meaning good life standard, of course, do not bring democracy. There are countries with good life standard there, but democracy without good life standards. So fighting corruption, I agree, fighting corruption, but if the pie is too small to fulfill the people basic need to feel dignified as a citizen of this continent, which is the richest in the world, then of course it goes also through corruption, the fight to get more. So we need to combine this and to be able, so I think this track is somehow open. The green lanes with Greece, Italy, and Croatia that were decided yesterday to be open. The roaming agreement that was decided yesterday, so for the citizens of our region, we talk a lot in the phone, by the way. We spend a lot. Albania is, I think, the #1 per capita in SMS in Vodafone Empire. We SMS also about good morning, how are you? Have you heard anything so today? How is life? Or just an emoji in the morning. So it's great. Normally these things would have happened being members. So we need to push in this direction. We should not push to get this membership forcefully. It will never come. A membership will come when we'll be ready and when they will be ready. And we know how it goes, you know. But we are talking now, the marriage at least is sure that will happen. And I repeat, more mature when you are when you marry, better the marriage works. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So before you go, I'm going to invite Paul. Paul, can I invite you to come here? I just need an extra mic, please. Thank you. So Paul, whilst we have the gentleman here, for your benefit, so I can just grab a copy of this so I can do a bit of, you know...
This is me, all right?
That's you. So we have our, you know, our cartoonist here who's, you know,
what
doing...
I do when I come in Brussels, box.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're launching this, which is our, you know, thank you for that. Our Balkans security study. This gentleman, as I mentioned already, I'm not going to reintroduce him, has been speaking both in the open and in the back in terms of private conversations, confidential conversations, to actually understand the quality, welfare, well-being of security matters, peace and security defense matters in the Balkans vis-a-vis Europe and Europe vis-a-vis the Balkans. So, Paul, thank you. I know that this is a bit, you weren't expecting me to do this straight away, but whilst we've got the grand opportunity of having the three gentlemen here, please communicate to them what you think are the top 5 messages that they should hear around peace, security, defense of the Balkans. Over to you.
Thank you very much. And gentlemen, you know your region much better than I do, so. Absolutely.
He has 5 minutes, don't worry. He's only got 5 minutes.
As you'll see from my title, I'm urging people to seize the geopolitical moment. And I think that yesterday was a very a strong start at that, but it was only a start. And the question is still, I think, there. I listened to the Young People's Forum this morning, and several of the young people who spoke said they felt that the war in Ukraine had pushed their region down the agenda, had lowered their place in the queue to join the EU. So I think my first point would be to say, I think it's the opposite. I think it's finally focused minds in the EU on the geopolitical importance of the Western Balkans, that this is a contested region. It's a region where there are other forces which don't want the same thing as us, where Russia in particular is trying to, as the French say, to blow on the embers and to try and maintain conflicts where they exist, to work its way into those unresolved problems and to try and create embarrassment for the West, that's to say, both for the EU and for NATO. And therefore, I think there are potential security risks for the EU that emanate from neglecting the Balkans. And I think that, frankly, over the last 20 years, there's been a lot of neglect. There have been various reasons for it. Of course, there have been other crises that the EU has had to deal with, internal crises, but we can still see that there are potential security threats there, and that they might at the least create political violence, as we saw briefly on the streets of Mitrovica, for example, this summer, and that violence could potentially escalate into something bigger and suck in outside forces. And I think particularly of the threats of succession by the Bosnia Republika Srpska. If that were to materialize, if they were to make good on those threats, I think that would create a crisis where violence would be quite likely, despite the presence of a small EU peacekeeping force. My next message, I think, therefore, is that the EU really needs to think much harder still about how it does the enlargement process. And we didn't see enough of that, in my view. There were 1 or 2 hints about it in the declaration yesterday. Incidentally, I'd be interested to know whether that it wasn't a joint declaration, but it said that you had aligned with things in it. So it wasn't quite clear what your role in that declaration was. But the fact is that as you say, the pre-accession instrument does not provide a lot of money. It tends to get diverted from one priority to a more urgent priority without increasing the envelope. And then when countries eventually join, they are showered with this sort of gusher of up to 4% of their GDP, which many of them have difficulty in absorbing. So moving more of the benefits of membership up front seems to me essential, but in order to do that, you have to have states that you can trust to administer and to absorb those funds, and that raises the issue of corruption and puts it front and center, in my view, and the issue of state capture in some countries. What the EU, in my view, could do more of is to reward those that are making the most progress in the negotiations. More political involvement, we heard that from you gentlemen, more involvement in ministerial meetings, in deliberations on a whole range of subjects that matter to your region, whether it be connectivity, public health, energy, climate change, and I'm sure I've omitted some. It is a struggle in some ways between the West, European values, and Russia and China. But it's also, I think, and I have to say this, within the Western Balkans, there's a second struggle going on, which is between what I would call the Brussels model of liberal democracy and a sort of, dare I say, Orban-Vucic model of rather more illiberal democracy, of rather more authoritarian democracy. And I think that's something that we're going to need to face up to. What kind of democratic systems that you build in your region, and how there's a risk that we get a whole new zone of a different kind of democracy, let's say, under the influence of Hungary. It's not dissimilar from some of the developments in Turkey, and therefore the three leaders who are here today, I think, are from countries which are doing the best at resisting that kind of temptation, but it's clearly a possibility. So those would be my key points. I think I want to make one point, at least
very briefly.
Right, to the West Europeans. I'm very worried when I hear the Germans and the French saying that there cannot be any more enlargement until the EU fundamentally changes the way it takes decisions on issues such as sanctions and taxation policy, because I think that the message that comes across in the Western Balkans is, right, we're back at the end of the queue. We'll be in the queue forever. There's another Albanian joke which Eddie didn't mention, but which one of my Albanian interviewees said, which is, when the question is, when will Albania join the EU? And the answer is, when the EU no longer exists.
Okay, that was great. Thank you for that. It didn't have the same currency as Eddie's jokes, but that's not an issue. I watched I'm going to bring you.
I have to correct the joke source, because this source is not Albania. This joke is not. In Albania, the joke was different. Was during the time of fights and frustration that they were not wanting to talk. The joke was between Euro optimist and Euro pessimist. The Euro optimist said that Albania will join the EU together with Turkey. The Euro pessimist said Albania will join the EU when Turkey will have the EU presidency. So this was the difference. This, when EU will not exist, is it looks like a kind of Serb depression.
Okay, Paul, thank you very much. I watched the three gentlemen as you were talking about the forms of democracy, and the emotional intelligence tells me that didn't go down very well. But let them respond. So, can I ask, Britan, you were also looking when that last point that Paul made about the model of democracy that's being developed, and you're thinking, well, what's your reaction to that point, but also more generally the recommendations that Paul's just made?
So, thank you, Mr. Paul, for the comments. And I think that you put on the table one question, how EU can be more effective, and what people in Germany or in the Netherlands or somewhere else thinking about enlargement. What I see like open restaurants for the few months ago is true. Not. I see that the people from this, for all member states, most of the people support enlargement. And our request is to the governments of that member states just to listen over people. Also in some states, which is the pessimism traditionally very high, now after the situation in Ukraine, it's a little bit different. it's a little bit different. And I think that this is the moment to use the opportunity. This is not the moment to use the opportunity to say when we formally will be in. Nobody knows. It's a lot of things. But we formally need to feel the door is open.
Exactly.
This is something what we need to have formally to say door is open. Okay, we cannot say it will be for 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, I don't know. Maybe some countries will go faster, maybe some slower, but to feel that this is what I want to mention. About this, what you say, probably problems in some regions, violence, it's true, it's that kind of region, you know, a lot of history, and always talking about negative topics. Always talking, put on the table negative things. The people don't like to see good things. People don't, for them it's not news that we travel with personal cars or we don't have roaming. Everybody will say, okay, that's okay. But everybody want to see that fight between Serbia and Kosovo will start. Or problems in Bosnia and Herzegovina, or problems in, I don't know, in Montenegro. We need to change a little bit narrative. We need to give some positivism. And this metaphor about the sun, it's good thing. It's not about sun and fun. We need to have, it's also, but we need to have more sun in our minds. In our words, to have more sun.
Indeed.
Because in our words and in our minds, we have only rain and snow. This is I think that we need more sun in our minds and in our words and also in our words.
With your Montenegro. But can I react to what Paul said? Just two things. First, thank you for saying that we know better than you our region. You are the first European. In this city to say this. So this is amazing. Thank you for that. But as we know better than you, then you have to listen to us now. But I'm not gonna take Kanan's time. His name is very complicated. His second name is Kanani. I call him Kanan. Kanan is an Albanian name. I don't want to take his time. More, and I want to say this. It's not true that France and Germany is in the same position. On the contrary, Germany has advanced dramatically its position, and you have to put a bit more attention to the new chancellor, because maybe you are following the old one still. Merkel is the new one in Berlin. Who is constantly repeating that speeding up the integration, the full integration of the Western Balkans is strategic goal for Germany. France is a bit more complicated, but it's great that finally the process of creating this new political community has started. It should have started, you know, it should have started in, if I'm not wrong, in the 18th century. In 18th century, when Abbé de Saint-Pierre launched his platform, all the leaders were fascinated, but then didn't happen because there were some little things, they said, that they couldn't agree. Then Mitterrand came back with the idea in 1991 in Prague, and this was sabotaged completely. But it's very important exactly for what we are talking and for what you said very rightly. And please, if this is in the report, we should do everything to push this report as much as possible, because this is the fundamental thing. The anticipation of moves that we should not wait the membership to happen in various directions. So our alignment, our full alignment with the European Union should not be taken for granted, although we'll fully align again, but should be also supported. So the new political community, the summit in Tirana, in the Balkans, and the wording are very important signs. So we need to be, I have not the reputation of being optimistic about the European Union, but I think we have to be optimistic because there are things that are really positive. Of course, the risk that they turn on the other side and they start slipping is big. I very much hope that the European Union, which is back because of a war, will not wait for another war to start talking again about another chapter. I think it will now continue to deepen this process and give to our countries more oxygen to be able to run faster, because we cannot run faster without having some support. I brought here the Greece experience with the budget, but imagine the amount for all the countries. And when it comes to us, it's very, very poor. So this is what I would say. But frankly, I'm for the first time since a long time, I'm again optimistic about the possibility of important changes when it comes to us, but also to Europe. And my very last word is, I strongly believe that the European Union should start thinking and working today for what will be the next day after this conflict. Should start working. It's not just about reconstructing Ukraine, because there is not only one Ukraine in our continent. There are several Ukraines waiting to blow, and it's about a larger region to be carried. And Ukraine is the visible wound, but the whole organism is suffering. So, a plan of renaissance of Europe with very, very visible and tangible for the people agenda of change, a vision, to make people dream again, to make people hope again. Not only because it's not just in Montenegro that people have the clouds and the rain in their minds. Also in Paris, you have more people that ask where is my house than people that know where their house is. So they have lost completely, their GPS is gone. So we have to give some hope and some new dream to our people. I'm speaking here as European, not as Balkan, because our people in Balkan already have the hopes and the dreams in centuries, and they'll never lose them.
Thank you. I hope the journalists in the room have captured, because if those of you who follow Eddie will know, it's very rare that you get that tone of optimism and the fact that actually things are going to change. This is historic, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad you said it here, because it is first time you're saying, actually, this feels better, this feels more hopeful, and this could actually change, and that, which is very, very important to consider. I'm running out of time desperately. No, of course I'm going to bring Steve Ode. I would not necessarily ignore the president.
In a pessimistic note. Otherwise, why will you invite the Balkans?
I'll be very brief.
Steve, I don't think you are going to be pessimistic. Over to you.
Because I'm going to speak about rain, clouds, smiles, and suns.
Yeah.
It's obvious that, very shortly, it's obvious that, thank you for your report. You know at least about Balkan as we know, so do not believe Eddie did. It's obvious that the changes are needed, badly needed on both sides, I mean, in Brussels and in the region, but I'm afraid to say, my prediction is that unless the European Union will change the basic decision-making models within the Union, not only for accepting the new members or waging the negotiations, we will not see too much of a progress. and the betterment of the relationship between Brussels and the Western Balkan region. I'm afraid to say that. I would like to be incorrect in this prediction. Of course, we are building a liberal democracy in North Macedonia. It has been recognized and confirmed by many international observers, not by my side only. But in short, less Europe in the region, more Russia, with the exception of Albania, of course. And that is, no, for sure. And would like to, the second part of this sentence will be: if we are seeing less of Europe, less of you, then we are going to see more and more of this type of authoritarian models of ruling. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know that I've brought you in. This has been, I told you, it's going to be something we have to swim with and live with, because it's rare that you get these three. And I know that they need to move. But I also, I'll bring you in. This has been a very male dialogue. We have a person here who's already been waiting very patiently. Alexandra, can I just ask you to come up here and just respond to what you've heard? You're from the region, you've been there for some time, and you've worked here also. I just want to give you a voice and react openly, frankly, to what you've heard. And I do apologize, it has been a very male dialogue here, but we did have Alexandra already on the panel. That sounds defensive, but it's not meant to be. Over to you.
Yeah, I'm the quota. I'm the civil society quota and the female quota, obviously. And looking at you, we also have to change power in the Balkans so that when politicians are invited, it's not always a manel. Well, yeah, I was following carefully, and I somehow have the feeling that we have to reduce abstraction, because in 2018, finally, also the European Commission stated that we have state capture across the region, and then that is since then floating abstractly. It's a regional level, far away. Nobody is breaking it down on the countries themselves, and nobody's taking action. And then we heard now today of homeworks that the countries have to do and deliver, but also that is somehow abstract. I mean, people in power have to deliver on these homeworks, so it's you. And the Western Balkans are far from ready. And that's really a pity. I mean, if you remember when Iceland applied, everybody was welcoming, and it was about a speeded up accession, because Iceland basically is ready. There is a small part of the acquis, the political criteria fine, the economic criteria fine. The countries of the Western Balkans are far from being at that level, and that's only up to them. Of course, there is a lot of on the EU side, and I would agree here that until we finally have answers on the institutional absorption capacity, because every other absorption capacity is just an empty speaking. We are too small, we are economically not relevant, and so on. So it's about institutional absorption capacity. How will a commission of potentially 33 or even more commissioners look like? Where will we have qualified majority voting? Will the Council be in the position to decide at all? How big will the European Parliament become, and so on? So these are the questions on the EU side, but I fear that the list that's on your side is much longer.
Okay, thank you very much. Before you answer, and I know I will let you...
Can I say something to Alexandra? First of all, because she made a think tank irony about quota. First of all, I have to inform you all, and Alexandra, of course, need to be informed in this, that Albania has the largest number of women in government in the UN chart. In the UN chart, so we are top 1. We were in the top 10 in my second mandate. In the third now, we are in top 1. And it's not about quota anymore, it's about choice. So just so you know.
I didn't say quota.
No, you mentioned quota, of course. I'm a very careful listener on the contrary with what people think that I'm a deaf dictator. So secondly, the thing about homework is fundamental. Of course, people in power should deliver. In fact, no. It's not about people in power should deliver in the case of European integration, it's about institutions should deliver. It's not about just the executive branch of the power, it's about parliament, it's about especially the judiciary. So, and this is, and the whole process is homework. So of course we speak about homework. There's no doubt about it. And thirdly, I must say, yes, it's true that we lost a lot of time. But let me remember you, North Macedonia didn't lose a lot of time because didn't do the homework to make the other step. Because the homework in this house is not decided by the people of power. It's decided by the people of papers. European Commission people that are the most diligent, in my view, the most diligent, the most objective, the most ruthless people when it comes to make every screening of every process, and they said that then Macedonia was ready to start the accession talks. In which year, my friend? When he was not yet married. So, and it's not the fault of the people in power in Macedonia, but it's a different story. Same goes for Albania, about who, thanks God, we don't have a neighbor asking us to change name, yes, or to change whatever, because it could have been, and it would have been terribly complicated, and it's nothing to do with people in power. So, with all due respect and with all appreciation for the great work of think tanks, I have to say that it's very important. It's very important that everyone in this effort does good its job. It's very important.
I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to give you a chance to speak, but I want 60 seconds of this young person who has been eyeballing me.
Used that I speak on behalf of North Macedonia, and it doesn't even need to make the advocate.
I know, but just 60 seconds for this young woman to have her voice, because I promised that I would let you have your say. So, but I need you to be sentence.
Okay. Well, I want to say you a message from young people who are here and young people from all over the world. We want to be included in things who are considered to us. We are here, not in our countries, and we wait to you invite us for new change.
Thank you very much. Okay, so thank you very much. Now I want to, Steve. Obviously, I'm going to give you a chance. Are you?
It's enough.
Just enough.
Everything was said through my person.
Great. That's solidarity.
This the European way to join?
Yeah.
He just finished in optimistic way.
They need to finish in a pessimistic way. I don't know.
No, don't do that.
No, they, not me. Not me.
No. We're happy with sunshine. We really are. We're very happy with sunshine.
Don't ask him to speak again. Let go.
Colleagues, obviously, this is a rare moment. I hope you agree. It's great to, I mean, would you imagine that you'd have Macron, Rutte, and Scholz here doing this?
First of all, because they don't come in your invitation, first of all.
Really? Did you have to say that? I was trying to kind of talk about the political culture that, you know, at least you demonstrate a different, humble, political culture that actually is based on, I'd like to think, this is my words, the power of public service. And when you really understand public service, you engage in the way that you do. I'd like to think that's what it's about. So thank you all very much. Thank you. I knew it was my toughest gig having these three, especially him. But I hope you agree. It's like watching an episode of Good Politics on Netflix with these two gentlemen. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure and a joy. Thank you. And quick break and then we're back. Thank you all very much.